So our next presentation is from CINECA. So Michele Carpené?
Yes, that's me.
Excellent. An authentication solution for iRODS based on the OpenID Connect Protocol. There you go.
Hi everybody, I'm Michele Carpené from CINECA. I'm going to present this authentication solution for iRODS based on the PAM authentication module and the OIDC. Just a few definitions and words. PAM is a pluggable authentication module, as you know, that provides dynamic authentication support for Linux systems. A central authentication endpoint authenticates users towards a specific user base. The IDP is the identity provider. The OP is an OpenID provider, and the OIDC is the OpenID Connect Protocol. The B2 Access is the general authentication system in UDAT, and can act both as an IDP as a bridge for other services. What we are going to do now is to describe this authentication solution for iRODS that we implemented in CINECA based on the OIDC protocol. And more in detail, we are describing this new pluggable authentication module, PAM, which allows to accept an OIDC token, first of all, to validate the token, because the token should be validated by the authentication service. And finally, once the token has been validated and the user is authenticated, the user should be mapped to the local account, local to the system on the site. How it works OIDC, probably most part of you know the OIDC protocol. In general, the user log in to a generic service, so the user must log in. The service receives the authentication request and redirects the user to the OP, the OpenID provider, using the OIDC protocol. Then the user authenticates towards the OP using his or her own credential or indicating a different affiliation or identity provider, but anyway. And then the OP authenticates the user and the service receives the response and authorizes the user to use the service. Critical points, how we could, in general, chain together a front-end service and a back-end service. In this case, we are talking about the B2Safe in particular, the other service called B2Safe. The B2Safe is needed for the user to upload and download the data. So we need the user to log into the front-end service using OIDC, to a generic front-end service, and then to get access to the B2Safe with the same identity and to be mapped to the local account to use the service. So how the credential could be passed from the front-end to the back-end. We need the identity of the user to be validated in general. These are the two critical points. And we need to map the identity of the user to the local account, locally to the site. A possible solution. We can enable the user to authenticate, to log in to the front end, receive an ID token. In this case, the token could be released, for example, to the IDP, to the OP, which can be, for example, the B2 Access, just as an example. The user tries to access the B2Safe using this access token. The B2Safe takes the token and validates the token to the B2 Access endpoint who released it. So we need, in this case, the B2Safe to be able to validate the token. Then the user is mapped locally. This is more or less the schema. So the user authenticates to the front end, get the token, is redirected to the B2 Access, get the token, use the token to access the B2Safe validate the token towards the B2 Access introspection or validation endpoint, like the OIDC protocol permits to do. What we implemented the proposed solution, what we described before, using a PAM module written in C++, which can be compiled and configured. This is very useful to have flexibility compared to other solutions. For example, instead of creating a new iRODS authentication plugin. How it works? Using the iRODS PAM mechanism, the user login with the PAM. but she use the OIDC token instead of the username and password. The PAM module, which is called PAM OAuth2 SEO, receive the token and issue a request to the B2Access token validation endpoint, or introspection is the same, more or less. The solution has been tested. We have done many tests. We have tested both principally with two front-end services. These are in the context of EOSCAB. The first one is an HTTP interface called B2Stage HTTP API, which exposes functionality to upload, download data using iRODS. And the second one is a data management tool called Data Hub within EOSCAB, which is able to mount external storage, and the storage is exposed through WebDAV. Benefits and limits: we have good flexibility. The user, if it doesn't exist, she will be created on the fly to have a new account. Limits: we need to know the local iRODS username when you log in, because PAMS requires it. So you cannot just to go inside. And the token has a limited lifetime. We have a flexible solution, single identity based, validation of OIDC credential. We can envision future extension, like, for example, using regular expression or something like this within the module to check for the user, or to have dynamic versus static approach. Or anyway, the module is quite complete. The implementation started from forking the code of the old OAuth2 PAM authentication module developed by Alexander Kushkin, and so on. Okay, thank you.
Do we have any questions about OpenID Connect? Yes. Okay.
Hey, do you support with your PAM module to log in from a command line client? Do you support those kind of auth flows?
Generally, you can log in with the command line in general.
So how do you solve, like, if I use that and use Google as a backend?
Google as a backend, this has not been integrated yet. So probably, so but you mean?
I am at the Linux shell, just a shell. I don't have X, I don't have a browser.
Yes.
How does it support the flows where I just pass username and password and somehow get back the token? Because as far as I understand it, the system you had basically needs the token to be able to talk around and pass around all this stuff already available, right?
You have to get it from the B2Access, yes, and then you pass this, yes.
Okay, okay.
So if you need another token, you need to configure a different identity provider. If you want to use the Google one or Facebook or whatever, you need to be able to configure it if it supports OIDC, not other. Yes.
Yeah.
This can be easily done.
Usually they just need to display a web page.
Yes.
Which is kind of hard if you're just on the command line with no X.
Okay, I understand. Now from the command line you need to pass directly the token.
Okay.
You cannot be redirected, of course, now, yes. But you can authenticate versus a different identity provider and get the token. But you need then that the module is able to query the endpoint, the introspection endpoint that should be available, of course.
Okay, okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? So you said that the PAM made it easy, very good. Is there, what's the next step once it works? Are you going to add more providers? Are you going to try and support different people's things, or?
Yes, as I was saying, this is almost complete, but in general we can add some new feature for mapping the user in a more dynamic way, adding regular expression or whatever. But this is just, it's not a big component, so it's just to, but if we have a request, we can try to implement this. Is quite modular and very easy to
That's very
understand.
good. Ah, on the other side of the room. Okay. All right, we're gonna throw it twice. You ready? Maybe 3 times. Gonna come. Somebody's got to want it. All right.
For how long is the token valid?
Sorry?
For how long is the token valid?
I think can be 24 hour, I think.
You can configure this? Can you configure this?
This depends from the B2 access, I think. So it's not something that I can manage from the PAM module. This is something that is from the B2 access, because the B2 access configuration as an ADP should change the time that can be accepted or to release the token. Yes, the time to leave of the token or the parameter to validate the token. This should be changed from the B2 access configuration, not from here. It's just a redirection of the introspection request for the token.
And maybe you've mentioned it, but are you using this mostly for command line logins or for other type of logins?
At the moment, yes. It's just to authenticate using, yes.
On the command line?
Yes. But the approach is very general, because once you are able to introspect the token, you can use you can adapt the module for other use cases if you have.
Maybe a third question, if I may, Terrell. Is it possible to, because we had the question before about, well, you need to know that you need to get this token. So would there be any way to during the login process, to print something on the screen saying you need to go to this web page to get the token? Can we do this in the PAM module? Can we do this in the iRODS core?
You would have a PET available as a free PET for authentication, so possibly if you snip certain things or from certain networks. Whispering saying that PAM is happening before iRODS ever knows, and that's quite possible.
Yeah, that was I was afraid of.